So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the Sky News presenter Niall Patterson just picking apart Liz Truss, and it's absolute fatality to watch. She struggles a lot. He eye rolls a lot because he gets sick of this nonsense. And to be fair, I don't blame him. So we're going to watch this video. It's pretty good. So let's go.
This is all why in the kind of the legal paper that you published yesterday, you set out your use of the doctrine of necessity to justify, in essence, going back on your international agreement with the European Union. Just explain exactly where the grave and immediate peril that you are required to demonstrate to use the doctrine, where that grave and immediate peril exists. To my mind, I'm not sure that, having to fill in forms to send sausages to Belfast counts as grave and immediate peril.
And they can't argue that the protocol's causing all this damage and therefore, it's an immediate danger because the protocol's been in use for well over a year now. Where's the immediate peril? Stormont has been closed for months now, since February. So again, you can't argue immediate peril when it's been closed since February. It's been closed more this year than it has been open. So let's see what she has to say.
I think we all remember how hard won peace and political stability was in Northern Ireland, and the importance of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement in establishing both the successful North-South relationships, North-South trade and North-South communities, but also the East-West relationships.
Sure. I suggest that there are people who know a lot more about the Troubles than you and I, and they would, if they could, be sitting in Stormont at the moment. A majority of MLAs disagree with the action that you're taking. They don't see grave and immediate peril in front of them. I'm not sure invoking the Troubles right now is helping your argument.
That's a brilliant point there, that the elected officials in Stormont, the majority of them, are saying the protocol isn't the issue. And you've got so many other, international groups saying that the protocol it helps support the Good Friday Agreement. So for the government to argue otherwise and be one of the unique people arguing otherwise, I think the only person they have on their side is John Bolton. I mean, who the hell wants John Bolton on their team, honestly?
What the Belfast Good Friday Agreement is based on is the principle of parity of esteem of both communities in Northern Ireland. And you did mention the MLAs, but those weren't MLAs from the unionist community. And the point is we need the consent of both communities in Northern Ireland. We need both communities to be treated fairly and equally. And that's what we're doing through our Northern Ireland Protocol legislation.
Again, you never asked both communities about the protocol. You never asked both communities about Brexit initially. So to make these sorts of arguments doesn't make sense.
I will be clear, Neil, that we would rather have a negotiated agreement with the EU. And this is what I said to the EU yesterday. What we need is changes to the protocol that are causing real problems in Northern Ireland, raising costs.
Again, Northern Ireland's actually outperforming the vast majority of Great Britain, aside from London.
But also making people feel like they're not part of the...
Why haven't you not negotiated with the European Union formally since February, then?
I have been in talks with the European Union in February, in March. We've had 18 months of talks
no formal
altogether.
Negotiations. You're not talking about formal negotiations.
The fundamental point is that the EU won't change the text of the protocol.
That's true. The EU won't renegotiate, which I 100% agree with.
And it's the text of the protocol that's causing problems. Those are...
Again, completely agree with you.
So it's difficult to negotiate with somebody who won't change the thing that you want to negotiate. That's the issue.
What consequences in Northern Ireland that you are complaining about right now were not predicted before we ratified this?
Good point there, and that's something I've heard Faisal Islam talk about as well, where he talked about specific bits of the impact assessment report, which said that we would face these problems, and that was before the protocol was signed into law. So for the government to suddenly argue these are new things and it's causing peril, it doesn't make sense when, unless Liz Truss and other people haven't read the impact assessment reports, they have no leg to stand on here.
Well, there have been unintended consequences, and what we've seen over time, Neil, is things gradually getting worse in Northern Ireland.
The impact assessment
and what I cannot allow
said the protocol and the declarations you were going to sign up to would involve the checks that you now complain about, that it would be highly disruptive to the Northern Ireland economy that you're now complaining about. All the problems that you now identify with the Northern Protocol were obvious to people on both sides of the Irish Sea before you signed it. So this grave and immediate peril that you need to have to invoke the doctrine, it's just not there. You were being warned about it 3 years ago.
And that's great journalism. That's very good journalism, because he's brought out the actual document, he's referenced it, he said this is exactly what you knew would happen. This is what more journalists have to do when they talk about the protocol to specific politicians. They have to say, look, this is what the protocol says, this is what you said would be great back then, what suddenly changed? That's good journalism.
What we have seen is the situation gradually getting worse. We haven't seen the executive in Northern Ireland established since February. We've seen the trading situation get worse, diversion towards north-south, away from east-west. And this is why we need to act.
There's nothing to do with the Good Friday Agreement. The Good Friday Agreement is not really about trade, because we were both members of the EU at the time and we had open borders going across.
This is why we cannot allow the situation to drift, and we cannot allow the Belfast Good Friday Agreement to be further undermined. That's why the government's determined to act, and we're doing so in a reasonable way. We're not changing...
The European Union,
we're not changing,
Ireland, would say no to that.
We're not changing the whole protocol, Neil. We're changing the bits that are causing a real...
I'm not changing the entire agreement I have with the bank regarding my mortgage. I just want to change the bits that are causing me the most difficulty, like the repayments bit.
It's beyond the pale. I mean, in your command paper of the middle of last year, Lord Frost was talking actively about triggering Article 60. Indeed, let's talk about that. Why are we unilaterally changing our position on the protocol rather than using the mechanism contained within it for precisely moments like this?
It's very interesting, isn't it, that the government have moved away from threatening Article 16 to just saying we're going to renegotiate and redo the whole thing. I think that's very interesting. I don't know why specifically they've done that. It might be because they've actually understood what Article 16 does, and it doesn't do what they say. But yeah, it's a different tactic. It's quite interesting.
Well, the issue with Article 16 and triggering Article 16 is all it would do is put the situation back to what it is now, because we haven't fully implemented the protocol. We've only implemented part of the protocol. We have a standstill arrangement at the moment. And in order to fix the problems which are generating the issues in Northern Ireland, the customs across the Irish Sea, the requirement for customs codes, the tax differences for the people of Northern Ireland from the people of Great Britain, we need to deal with the protocol itself. So Article 16 and triggering it simply wouldn't have delivered the solution we need to fix the problems in Northern Ireland. And this is what I'm saying to the EU. I want to negotiate with the EU, but they have to be willing to change the text of the protocol.
It genuinely feels like they're going above and beyond anything the EU can actually offer in order to break the protocol. You know, the dual regulatory thing alone would be enough to kill the protocol. And it feels like the government are really pushing it, in a sense, to get rid of it entirely and make it so the EU cannot renegotiate with us, because the difference between a green lane and an express lane isn't a million miles away from each other. But the other stuff, the change to taxes and subsidies, that one won't fly. You've got the dual regulatory stuff, that won't fly. And getting rid of the ECJ, that won't fly either. So it genuinely feels like the government are trying to put the EU in a position where they cannot renegotiate.
Again, you suggest that things are getting worse, but all of the problems that have been identified right now in Northern Ireland were identified prior to the ratification of the Northern Ireland Protocol.
I think the only thing it might not mention in that impact assessment report is the DUP shutting down Stormont. I think that would be the only thing.
I mean, isn't the simple truth that you all knew it was a bad deal when you signed up to it, but you needed to get Brexit done? You got Brexit done, and you intended, as you are currently doing, wriggling out of it in the way that you are.
Hey, he hit the nail on the head there, didn't he? That they did it to get Brexit done, and we're going to renege on it as soon as they could. Hey, he did it. He figured it out.
We are addressing very, very serious issues in Northern Ireland that have emerged over the past 2 years.
Which bits have emerged? Honestly, tell me.
And they have caused...
He's asking for specifics here, a man after my own heart.
Problems of political instability, as we can see from the fact the executive hasn't formed. They've caused economic and trade problems in Northern Ireland.
Just performing better than the UK economy on average.
The solution we're putting forward doesn't make the EU any worse off. It protects the EU single market.
It doesn't, because the whole protocol, it deals with goods at risk of going into the single market, whilst under Liz Truss's proposals, the only things that would go on to be checked would be the stuff that's directly going into Ireland. So if they go into Ireland via Northern Ireland, they wouldn't face any checks, because who's gonna make sure that those goods stay in Northern Ireland? Pretty good job, admirable, given that Liz Truss was just constantly lying in this interview. But he did a very good job. I think there's some things I would have done differently, but again, as far as British journalists go, he gets a B from me on this interview. He tried to hold her accountable. He offered specifics, and I think anyone who watches that interview would think Liz Truss did not do that well. She looked flustered. She went back to talking points constantly. She didn't have a lot in terms of actual information. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Credit to him. A lot of credit to him. I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.